You think Manchin has main character syndrome like we all had as kids? Yes, but his main character syndrome is more nefarious and backed by his never-ending interest of maintaining the public eye, being in the forefront of conversations, looking as a spoiler, only to inevitably concede. Manchin is popular at home, right? No, he's not. No, the fuck he's not. He is not popular in Virginia. That is bullshit. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. West Virginians and their points of view do not matter. They know that they're voting for a corrupt person regardless, okay? Joe Manchin and his family has whichever part of wherever they lived and maintained power, political power for many generations. Joe Manchin has direct interest in mining corporations that he owns, okay? Joe Manchin's father and his grandfather were both mayors. They have always notoriously backed corporate efforts, and they will continue to do so. His daughter literally used the Manchin last name to get a fake degree, got the college to lie about her fake degree, still got a job at the Mylan's pharmaceutical manufacturer in West Virginia that manufactures EpiPen. They got Joe Manchin advocated to make sure that like all schools featured EpiPens. Then of course that Mylan pharmaceutical manufacturer was sold off to Pfizer a year after Joe Manchin's daughter left with a $30 million fucking compensation package, and then that factory closed, leading to 1,400 West Virginians losing their jobs. So this dipshit has always put his family's interest above the interest of West Virginia. He's always put his own personal interest and his own personal branding in the ahead of the interest of Americans. Nobody likes them, but there's nowhere you can't vote for anyone there. Like, who are you going to vote for?
Chuck Schumer says he's moving, quote, full speed ahead with this package. Will he have your vote?
And that's fine. He can. He will not have my vote on 3.5, and Chuck knows that. And we've talked.
That's really interesting that he doesn't have your vote on the 3.5. Wait, hold on. Joe Manchin. Why is he saying that right now? Wait, Joe Manchin in January. Senator Joe Manchin calls up to $4 trillion in infrastructure spending as Democrats are poised to control Congress. What? That's so crazy. What happened, dude? Oh, what happened is, it's gonna happen. So, of course, Joe Manchin has to go and fucking talk on the Sunday talk shows, show his like fucking billionaire and corporate backers that he is the guy who's gonna, fuck this deal up to like reduce the corporate tax rate or whatever the fuck, and that's why he has to maintain his figure. That's why I always say like this threat that Manchin is going to go into the Republican Party is a laughable one. You want to know why? Because no one will have Joe Manchin on if he is like every other Republican senator, just obstructing for the sake of obstruction. Okay, Manchin needs to be a Democrat so he gets that media coverage. If he's not a Democrat, if he's a Republican, yeah, good luck, dude. The fuck's he gonna do? No one's gonna give a fuck about Joe Manchin or his personal branding project if he's out here as just yet another fucking Republican. He can't play the spoiler.
We've already put out $5.4 trillion, and we've tried to help Americans in every way we possibly can. And a lot of the help that we put out there is still there, and it's going to run clear until next year, 2022. What's the urgency? What's the urgency that we have? It's not the same urgency that we have with the American Rescue Plan.
Bullshit. Joe Manchin wrote this article on Wall Street Journal so that he could get these like sweet little fucking talk show spots while a fucking hurricane was ripping through the East Coast, okay? Literally destroying the East Coast, like flooding in areas that have never seen flooding before, while this motherfucker was like, I'm gonna type out this fucking article on the Wall Street Journal to make sure that everybody pays attention to me. Me. Joe Manchin is no different than those fucking TikTok teenagers that we were watching yesterday that talk about how like these fantasy scenarios where they're somehow the fucking hero. You know what I mean? He's got main character syndrome in the exact same fucking way that a 17-year-old teeny bopper does on their dumbass TikToks, okay? The only difference is he's making a lot of money off of this, and this is his own personal branding project that the mainstream media, for some fucking weird reason, routinely offers him the opportunity to do so.
We got that out the door quickly. That was about $2 billion, $2 trillion. And on top of that, all the things we put out with the CARES package, everything leading up to that. So we have done an awful lot, and there's still an awful lot of people that need help. But you have 11 million jobs that aren't filled right now. 8 million people are still unemployed. Something's not matching up. Don't you think we ought to hit the pause and find out the vulnerability that we have, Dana, right now? We don't know what happened with this COVID. It's awful coming back the way it is with a vengeance. We don't know about inflation. We know it's running rampant right now. I can tell you.
Dude, my man talks about urgency. There's no urgency. At a time when there's definitely urgency, here's the real urgency, you dumb motherfucker that you already know that you're like hiding the truth about. The midterm elections. Joe Manchin knows he will lose his fucking relevance if the Democrats lose control of the Senate or lose control of the House and the Senate Doesn't matter. He loses everything when that happens. So no one will give a fuck about him. Which is why I believe that he will end up voting yes for this. Cinema is a little bit harder to move, in my opinion, than Manchin. Or worse, get a bigger majority, which is not going to probably happen. But still, you know, that could also ruin Manchin's position as well. But here's the reality, okay? We need every single fucking vote in the Senate to pass this $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation backed infrastructure bill. Joe Manchin is just simply fucking being like, oh man, I don't know. What about the inflation? What about inflation? It's like, fuck you, dude. And this interview is actually great because Dana Bash, for some weird reason, actually pushes back on him, and he has no answers.
In West Virginia,
I gotta pee. I'll be back in a second.
Running rampant. And on top of that, the challenges we're going to have, geopolitical challenges, shouldn't we be prepared?
I want to ask you about a lot of that, but are you saying it's the price tag, it's the timeline, both?
It's the urgency. Do we have the urgency to do what they're wanting to do in such a quick period of time?
But can you be specific? Okay, let's talk about the dollar sign.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific number in mind?
Here's a number you should be getting to. First of all, I have agreed to get on to the reconciliation because that's the time for us to make financial adjustments and changes. I thought the 2017 tax code and tax law, the way it was changed, was very, very, very unfair, and it was weighted to the wealthy.
So what's the number?
And the bottom line is, what the number would be, what's going to be competitive in our tax code. I believe that the corporate rate should be at 25, not 21.
But what's the overall number for the budget bill?
I think that you're going to have to look at it and find out what you're able to do through a reasonable, responsible way.
So then how do you know that it's not 3.5?
It's going to be at 1, 1.5. We don't know where it's going to be.
So you think ballpark 1.5?
It's not going to be at 3.5, I can assure you. But with that, whatever it is, once you have a competitive tax code that you can compete globally, and then you should look at what the need is. What's the urgency and the need that we have?
And I want to get to that, but just because this is the thing that people consume. Do you have a ceiling?
Dude, she's just so straight up. This is what people want to hear from you, you dumb old fuck. Just tell me the fucking number. And that's why I'm saying, like, it doesn't take much to be Joe Manchin. Like, he's not a particularly clever individual, but he has no answer, dude. He's got no fucking answer. Like, how are you going to write a whole ass article and not even have a fucking answer for it? That's nuts. That's nuts. So you don't have a problem with $3.5 trillion then? So you don't have a problem with it?
My ceiling is this, the need of the American people, and for us to basically take in consideration.
My ceiling, I don't know.
Inflation. No one's concerned about the debt. You know, our debt as of Friday was $28.7 trillion. And we're not even talking about that. No one's talking about that.
You just said 1.5. It sounds like 1.5
I'm just saying
trillion
that
is your
basically,
number.
well, I've looked at the numbers. If we have a competitive tax code.
So what happens when the bill is self-paying then? Like, what then? What then, Joe? What happens when it doesn't touch inflation? What then? He's got pay-fors, but also the pay-fors are too high, I think. Nobody's talking about the inflation. Nobody's talking about our debt. Yeah, you want to know why nobody's talking about our debt? Because no one gives a fuck. No one cares. That's never been a fucking real consideration. It's only fucking idiots like you who want to just spoil the fucking process for personal gain. That's the only time motherfuckers bring up inflation, or the only time motherfuckers bring up debt. Okay? Sorry. You don't care about debt either. You're just like using that as an opportunity because Exxon or whoever the fuck, all of your corporate backers want you to fucking blow this up. But even then, he's probably not going to blow it up either. He's just like, this is clout. He is like the ivermectin boys. You know what I mean? They're not personally getting money from ivermectin by selling ivermectin, but they're actually personally developing their clout amongst those who are looking for alternative medications. Okay, and that's precisely what Joe Manchin is doing here. He's not like personally benefiting from blowing up this bill outside of like developing his bona fides amongst those billionaires, millionaires, corporations that want him to play this role in every fucking opportunity he can. The rec bill has a stronger claim to debt neutral than the bipartisan bullshit, and nobody in the media says shit about this. Yeah, because the bipartisan bill does not have fucking... The bipartisan bill has like some pay-fors, but the actual reconciliation bill has a tax hike, because you couldn't put a fucking tax hike in the bipartisan bill because no fucking Republican was going to vote for tax hikes on corporations and the wealthy, by the way. Remember that.
Code. From a non-competitive, it doesn't help the working person. It was done in 2017. That's in the 1.5 range, okay? If that's where it is, shouldn't you be looking at what does it take now to meet the urgent needs that we haven't already met?
Okay, so let's talk about how this would be paid for. The White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, told me on this show last week that you are, quote, very persuadable on this budget bill because he says it will be paid for. It won't add to the debt. It won't
That's the funniest part. Like, they already knew this was going to happen, so they're kind of giving the game away. They're like fucking this up for Manchin a little bit. If you want to really like, help Manchin here, what you're supposed to do is like cry. Like what the Democrats are supposed to do is cry. Be like, oh no, Joe Manchin, like what? That's crazy. Like, why are you doing this? Oh, well. And then like do a symbolic meeting with Joe Manchin and then ultimately be like, well, here are the pay-fors for the bill. And we only got there because Joe Manchin bravely advocated for it. Like, just give him the fucking claps. You know what I mean? But instead, they're just calling him out. They're like, nope. Here are the pay-fors. Joe Manchin was very agreeable on this. So now he's faced with a fucking situation where he has to like assume another stance where like, I don't know. This is not actually, no, I'm not consolable. I'm not agreeable. Like I said, ultimately, just, go back to this always, okay? This fucking dipshit literally was an advocate for $4 trillion. The worst thing the Democrats did was like they lowered the number to $3.5 trillion out the gate before going in with their original $6 trillion package. Because the original $6 trillion package addressed all of the needs, and then they came out of the gates with a 3.5 number, so now they're gonna fucking talk to Joe Manchin about 3.5. It is what it is. It just always has to be fucking, it always has to start way high.
Don't add to inflation.
Well, if you're paying for it with inflated numbers from the standpoint, is the tax code, the numbers that they're wanting to pay for it, and the tax changes they want to make, is that competitive? Does it keep us competitive or not?
It does. It literally does. Okay, shut the fuck up, you dumb bitch. It's insane. And now, as a Democrat, Joe Manchin is advocating against higher tax for the wealthy and corporations by bringing up competition. What's going to happen, dude? Are the wealthy going to leave the country? Is that what's going to happen, brother? You think people making more than $400,000 are just going to be like, well, I guess, this is not competitive. I guess it's time for me to live in fucking Belize, okay? Shut the fuck up. That's not happening. That's never happened. It's not going to happen. Shut the fuck up.
I believe there's some changes made that does not keep us competitive.
Meaning don't increase taxes on corporations?
I want to increase taxes on corporations. I've spoken to corporations.
So what specifically are you saying?
I want the wealthy to pay their fair share. But if you're up higher to the point,
well, we can't make it too fair. I want the wealthy to pay their fair share, but how much do the wealthy actually have to pay? I mean, there is such a thing as too much fairness. Okay, that's right. I spoke to all the wealthy people. They call me up every weekend. They say, hey, Joe, we love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Yee, Joe.
You have another side of this negotiation and some of your fellow Democrats, which I want to get to in a second. But let's just stay on what they call here in Washington the pay-fors, how your fellow Democrats want to pay for this. They're looking at increasing the corporate tax rate, closing existing loopholes, raising taxes on wealthy Americans, trying to get money back from, get the IRS to get money back.
I agree with all of that. I agree with all of that.
And they say they can add that up to 3.5 and there will be not a dollar. This is what they're saying.
I understand, but we just disagree.
You just don't believe them?
No, I don't believe them. I'm just saying that those rates are not going to be competitive to find out the money.
He has a problem with the tax rate. Like, the pussy right here, this pussy right here is refusing to say, like, I don't want to fucking put taxes on the wealthy. And Dana Bash, for some weird fucking reason, can't turn around and be like, what is the competitive rate? Just ask what the competitive rate is. And then ask why he thinks going back to the pre-Trump administration tax rates is, for some weird reason, not competitive when we had permanent growth with those tax rates. Please explain. Go ahead. Please explain, sir. Please. What I don't understand is, like, how can you be a debt guy and then literally advocate for lower taxes? Like, it's so fucking weird to be like, I care about inflation. I care about debt. Okay, motherfucker. Both of those things that you mentioned have to do with taxing. So what's up with increasing taxes? Literally, like, you can't fucking be like, I care about the debt and I care about inflation, and then turn around and be like, I also don't think we should be raising taxes on the wealthy. Like, you can't do that. It's the opposite. It demands the other thing that you're trying to fucking yeet.
Here's the difference. They're looking for 3.5 trillion. I'm looking for a competitive tax rate. Okay, I want to make the adjustments and changes. They're looking for basically.
What does competitive tax rate mean? Can you
globally competitive? Then you have to be globally competitive.
Right,
you can't be.
But can you
first of all,
explain?
you can't be at 39% as far as capital gains. I said 28 all in. Okay, you can't be at 28 or 30 or more with corporate net. I've said 25 all in, and I think that every corporation should pay a minimum of 15%. They should all pay something. I believe in that, but the bottom line is the need that we.
Dude. Oh, shit, dude. That's crazy, man. You can't do 28. I'm 25 all in. Yo, how about 0, dude? Fuck it. I seriously, 0% corporate tax rate, dude. That's the most competitive. How about 0? Fuck it, dude. So now we arrive at the real problem for Joe Manchin is that he needs to be looking at his own interests, all right? His own interests are those of the corporate entities that call him up every weekend and tell him, you're doing a good job, Joe. You're doing a good goddamn job, Joe. We here at ExxonMobil, we love you. That's right. Keep those corporate tax rates competitive, brother. You're doing a great goddamn job. Wrong. We should pay corporations a portion of our tax rates, specifically Exxon and those that pay Manchin out. Brother, I have a really interesting thing to tell you, but we do that already. Like, literally, we do exactly that. As a matter of fact, part of the reason why we have taxes to begin with is so that we can do that. Yeah, it's called government subsidies. Like, for example, when it comes to energy, 75% of those go directly to directly to the fossil fuel industry. Yeah, you don't even need ExxonMobil. His son runs the coal company he started and still makes money from. Chair of the Energy Committee. Yeah, I love that. I love being the chair of the Energy Committee so my son can fucking run my coal company that I'm supposedly divested from.
As you well know, dozens of House progressives are saying no, they're not going to vote for your infrastructure deal until you support what we're talking about here, the overall budget bill, which has a lot of the president's agenda, a lot of Democrats' agenda in it. By digging in your heels on this, aren't you dooming your own infrastructure bill?
Who's digging in the heels here from the first of all? The infrastructure.
You are, motherfucker. That's the only reason why I can go on State of the Union. Otherwise, no one gives a fuck about you because you're irrelevant douchebag. Shut the fuck up.
Infrastructure bill has been passed, okay? You have a bipartisan bill with 19 Republicans. Who thought that could happen? Who thought that? And, we worked hard on that for many, many months.
Here you have the mainstream media getting poisoned by their own petard, okay? Guess what? If you personally fucking constantly talk about bipartisanship as this virtuous thing exclusively for the virtue of bipartisanship alone and nothing else, like if you consider for many years bipartisanship to be a standalone virtue, then they will use that against you. When push comes to shove, they will turn around and they will fucking use that against you and be like, well, look, it's bipartisan. We got a bipartisan bill. Isn't that great? It's like, why? Who cares? Many people thought it never would have happened. Well, so what? Who cares? The only reason why bipartisanship should be celebrated is if it's passing a fucking bill that's good for the American people. That's it. And the moment that it's not passing, the moment that you're using bipartisanship as a fucking talking point against like further passing bills that the American public demands and needs, not even demands, needs at this point, then it doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I don't care if like an authoritarian bill passed either. I've said this before and I will repeat it. Like, I personally don't care if like in an authoritarian way we like do vaccine mandates. If in an authoritarian way we implement Medicare for all. I don't care. This is not something I've ever cared, and it's not something I will ever care. There have been plenty of fucking bipartisan bills that have been devastating for America, okay? The Patriot Act, the congressional approval and authorization for use of military forces. Like, there have been a fuckload of things. The expansion, the constant expansion of the fucking surveillance state, constantly inflated budgets for our military-industrial complex, the Iraq War, Afghanistan. These are all bipartisan bills, okay? None of which that has been good, okay? So if we were to truly help people, if we were to truly and genuinely help people, I don't care if it's fucking passing in an authoritarian manner, okay? You're going to shut the fuck up and you're going to enjoy it later down the line regardless. And you're going to act like all of those benefits were benefits that you were always on board with. Social Security being like a great example of this.
And the president's team was very much involved. And the president went out and sold this around the country. Why would you basically let the perfect be the enemy of the good? You have a bill right now. I'm not saying we're not going to get to a reconciliation bill.
Dog, you're the one who's doing that. You are letting perfect be the enemy of the good. Okay, there's a good bill. There's two good bills. You want perfect. Perfect implying you don't want the other. I mean, even then, he doesn't have a problem with that, man. He literally doesn't have a problem with the other bill. It's just fucking bullshit, dude.
Let's talk about some of the specifics, because I want to get to the substance of what we're talking about here, because I don't think that gets enough attention. What President Biden and the Democrats say is the child tax credit, which has been expanded, make it permanent. They're saying it's already having a major impact on poverty and hunger for children. Do you support making it permanent?
Well, I support child tax credits. I sure am trying to help the children.
But the expansion
Let's talk about this before you start saying is it going to be permanent, this and that.
Yeah.
Let's see how we're doing. Let's make sure that we're getting it to the right people. Let's make sure the people on poverty. I can tell you, people that are working and working poor, making every effort they can to get ahead in life, that's in that 50,000 and below. I've got people that making combined 200 and 300 and more up to 400 saying they're getting checks. You know, if we have X amount of dollars.
But it's on a sliding scale. They shouldn't be doing that.
Well, it's happening, though. This is happening because of the sliding scale. It's 75 and 150 with a sliding fee up to 400. Okay? These are things that there's hard caps to be put. The need base, We're not having anything about need-based. We're not doing any type of that. And first of all, child tax credits. Think about this. If it's child tax credit, you want to help the children and the parents that are basically providing for those children. There's no work requirements whatsoever. There's no education requirements whatsoever for better skill sets. Don't you think if we're going to help the children, that the people should make some effort?
So let's talk about universal pre-K. West Virginia, your home state.
I've been all for that. I'm all in.
You want to make it a federal
Well,
program.
it's fine to be federal, but the states can do it too, and the states have a responsibility.
But should
if the
universal
federals-
pre-K be in a bill like this
I
that
don't
you
have
would
a
support?
problem because I support universal pre-K.
Okay, what about increasing funding for home care services for the sick and
We have
elderly?
$60 billion hadn't gone out the door yet. $60 billion. Only thing I'm saying
Too much money. Too much money. We can't be giving the olds too much money.
is why urgency to spend another $300 billion toward.
Bro, he's such a fucking piece of shit. Why? I don't know. Maybe because that's where the fucking demand, that's where the needs are, dog. Have you thought about why that a necessity? These are also the hilarious part about this, and this is like what fucking triggers me to no end about like neoliberals who deny this. Everything that they've been able to like get a fucking little drip feed of money to is disgustingly popular, like with every base. Even including the base of voters, like the only base that matters, not the poor, not black people, not brown people, like old voters, okay? Old white voters, disgustingly popular. So this notion that like you're, advocating against that is psychotic, dude.
Clean energy provisions that are in this bill, they would use tax incentives and carbon capture technology to try to cut emissions in half and make the electric grid 80% clean energy by 2030. Do you support that?
Let me tell you this. Let's look at where we've come.
He's not going to answer that, dude. He's such a piece of shit. Let me tell you this. Have you perhaps considered that my son owns a coal company? Now, of course, I'm divested from it. I mean, it would be gosh darn unethical if I was advocating for the interest of big coal while I simultaneously, functionally own a coal company.
Over the last 20 years. In 2000, year 2000, 52% of our electricity came from coal. Only about 16% came from natural gas, and only about 9.5% came from renewables. 20 years to date. Okay, 2020, 19% from coal, 40% from natural gas, and up to 20% for renewables. The transition is happening. Now they're wanting to pay companies to do what they're already doing. Makes no sense to me at all for us to take billions of dollars and pay utilities for what they're going to do as the market transitions. We've proven that, and we will continue to transition. They're accelerating something that could be very, very vulnerable to the reliability.
So it sounds like a no. You don't support the provisions
at all.
Okay.
Oh, that's hilarious, dude. Sounds like a no. Imagine going on CNN as a Democratic senator with a 50-50 split and having CNN not backing you, LMAO. Yeah, I mean, it's because it's so disingenuous that, like, it's easy to tackle. It, like, makes for good fucking content. It's kind of wild that the thing that is really frustrating about this, though, is that, like, Joe Manchin didn't even do the work. Like, that's such a fucking spit on the faces of, like, every American that's, like, desperate and looking for help from the government. That every constituency across the board that absolutely would benefit tremendously from infrastructure spending, whether it's like healthcare for the elderly or childcare. The guy who is holding this process up has the audacity to go on national television for his own personal branding endeavor, and he didn't even do the research, he didn't even do the work to just be like, here are my talking points, actually. Like, that's how little this guy gives a fuck, and it doesn't matter. I don't know if I want to listen to Bernie Sanders as well.
To the union, Senator Bernie Sanders is back on the campaign trail trying to sell voters in middle America on Democrats'
This motherfucker is 700 years old, bro. 700 years old. And he's campaigning across the country, like, doing more than Joe Biden right now to sell this thing. Can you imagine? Dude, we do not deserve Bernie Sanders, man. We really don't. I mean, look, we literally do not deserve him. We deserve the Joe Manchins of the world. We don't deserve Bernie Sanders.
First, your colleague, Joe Manchin, just explicitly told me repeatedly he will not support your $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. He wants to see something more in the ballpark of $1.5 trillion. Is that acceptable to you?
No, it is absolutely not acceptable to me. I don't think it's acceptable to the president, to the American people, or to the overwhelming majority of the people in the Democratic caucus. Look, we worked with Senator Manchin to pass the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which was enormously consequential and helpful to working class families in getting us out of the economic disaster that befell us as a result of COVID. I believe we're going to all sit down and work together and come up with a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which deals with the enormously unmet needs of working families. You know, we've got to lower the cost of prescription drugs for people. We've got to expand Medicare to include dental, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. We have to maintain the $300 direct payment we're giving to working parents, which have lowered childhood poverty in America by 50%. And I'll tell you what else we have got to do. The scientists will tell us that we got a few years left before there will be irreversible harm to our planet if we do not address climate change.
Like, this dude's gonna die, dude. I'm sorry to remind everybody, but like, he's not gonna see the worst consequences of climate change. Okay, how is it that like one of the oldest members in the Senate is one of the best advocates against the irreparable harm that climate change is causing on this planet right now? It's nuts.
And the truth of the matter is, Dana, as you may know, many of us made a major compromise in going from the $6 trillion bill that we wanted, supported by the overwhelming majority of Democrats, down to 3.5. And the last point that I would make on this, I know that Senator Manchin worked very hard on what's called the bipartisan infrastructure bill, $550 billion of new money to rebuild our roads and our bridges. What we have worked on is working both of those bills in tandem. They go together. And it would be a really...
I will never understand how Americans can listen to this guy and look at this like 80-year-old man fighting his fucking ass off to pass bills that will help people that will never even touch him, to leave a better future, a better tomorrow for American generations to come. And then they're still like, he's a grifter, he's a piece of shit. I just don't understand how you can fucking look at this dude, look how much he cares, look at what he's done throughout his entire life, and go, he has 3 houses. Fuck that guy. He's yet another hypocrite commie. Fuck him. It's nuts. It's just fucking nuts. A dude who's like literally busted his ass his entire fucking life, dude. So sad.
Sad state of affairs for the American people, for Congress, if both of those bills went down.
Do you think that's possible, that could happen right now?
Yeah. I don't think it will happen. I mean, I think, look, this is a very difficult issue. What we are trying to do in this bill is more significant for